When technology finally returned to the celestial realm after many eons, she caused quite a stir. It had been taken as known fact that she had betrayed their lord and master long ago, joining the wretched creatures she was sent to deal with, and together they had spent the years opposing his will. What suicidal madness had possessed her to return after all this time? Would she beg for forgiveness, foolishly believing that what she had done could ever be forgiven? Would she make excuses? But then, what could possibly excuse her actions? Or perhaps she would simply surrender in shame, finally having seen the error of her ways. Either way, it promised to be the most monumental, intriguing, and entertaining event ever. So, naturally, everybody attended. The metaphysical space of the throne room strained under the weight of so many beings, but adjusted and twisted so that they all fit. There was a bubble of free space around technology and the Lord, as none dared come too close to either. Technology bowed deeply in respect as was proper. "O great Lord of Balance, Arbiter of the Universe and Ultimate Overseer, I have returned." The audience waited with bated breath. "Know that my mission was a success, and that I dedicate my victory to your glory." There was a great gasp. Nobody had expected such audacity. Even the Lord's eternal smile became strained. He took a deep breath, and he gave her a condescending look. "I see that you have been away for too long, and have forgotten our great purpose. Let me refresh your memory, so that you may understand the full extent of your folly. Our divine mission, sent by my glorious self, is to enact balance upon life. When a species becomes too prevalent, one of our agents is sent to deal with it. Fire, famine, poison, storm, volcano mutation, and many, many more, including, of course, you. A fairly new addition to our roster, at least at the time of your last assignment. Still, you had an excellent track record before then. When mollusks thought they could defy us with their shells, you taught otters to smash their defenses and aspirations alike. The ants you taught to farm aphids and mushrooms, controlling examples of both that were getting out of hand. You gave sticks to monkeys to get termites out of their oh-so-clever mounds. Branches to elephants to swat flies that annoyed us, and that is to name but a few. And of course, when mammoths got uppity and needed to be put in their place, introducing weapons to humans made quick work of that. It was these same humans that your last mission concerned. The tools got to their heads, and they spread every which way and started having ideas about their station. A few attempts were made to curb this incursion. Disease and war and such, but proved to be mere temporary stopgaps, if even that. And so the job fell to you. Now then, do tell us just how that went." Technology bowed deeply once more. "Of course, my lord. Initially my plans were traditional. Enhance some creatures so that they might do sufficient damage to the humans, and thus keep them suppressed. I considered arming meerkats with trebuchets. Equipping seagulls with napalm was also likely to be quite effective. I briefly even toyed with the idea of teaching an octopus to use repeating crossbows, since they could kill several at once, but decided the world was not ready for such horror yet. Ultimately, though, the deciding factor were humans themselves. They had taken to the tools I gave them in a way that no other species had done, not merely propagating their use, but expanding and improving upon them. I quickly came to the realization that none of my ideas would work. Sure, they might cut down the human population, but enough would survive, and they would figure out the technology their opponents used and make it their own. Indeed, as my predecessors had shown, nothing that only damaged humanity would be enough. No, they need to be destroyed, undone, completely erased. Now, today, I would know how to eradicate a minor species like humans were back then. Give the cockroaches post-fracture singularity bombs, key to resonate with the human shape, and enjoy the brief show. But I too was young and still quite weak, so I came upon the idea of self-destruction. A beautiful concept. I would accelerate their development, take their natural talent for refining and improving upon my gifts, and kick it into overdrive. Tools to make tools to make tools to make tools. And indeed, in short order, the complexity and lethality of what humans could make rose to the point where they became an existential threat to themselves in a dozen areas at the same time. Some intentional, others ticking time bombs created by neglect. It was glorious, and I still firmly believe that it was sheer dumb luck that got them through the worst of it. After all, the ingenuity and hard work they put into solving the problems was offset equal ingenuity and hard work put into denying and exasperating the problems, because they were still a few years in the future, or because they merely affected other, poorer people far away. So much lost potential for a glorious end. Eventually, they managed to manage or eliminate their risks, both the ones they had caused themselves and the increasingly frequent attempts by my esteemed colleagues. She gestured around the room and added with a smirk, "Turns out there isn't much that can truly threaten a mature technological society. Not that it's a competition or anything." "Indeed it is not. the Lord of Banners chided. So you failed your mission and take misguided pride in the resilience of your humans when aided by your creations. But it is not our purpose to be powerful, and certainly not to empower problematic creatures. Look rather to efficiency and subtlety as virtues to uphold. Take sentience, one of my greatest servants. Hardly noticeable, yet contributes to keeping nearly all creatures in check. It used to work on humans too before your failed plan made them capable of resisting. My first plan failed indeed, but I am nothing if not adaptable. So I assessed my situation, looking for another avenue towards success, and I realized that I've been too focused on the destructive capabilities of my little toys. But there is so much more to me. Indeed, humans had found many clever ways to use tools to improve their own lives, rather than just ruining or ending that of others. Beyond mere destruction, technology allowed for creation, modification, communication, and many other things ending in eon. Indeed, eons themselves, without any preface, could be produced as well. This, and modification in particular, I realized was the way forward. Humanity had managed to guard itself against destructive force, but it was meanwhile changing with its tools. Slowly still, but already there were people who were more artificial than human, and so I realized that if I encouraged this process, they would modify themselves out of existence. And that is what happened. It was not a smooth road, but skipping over tedious details that would take years to relate, eventually there was nothing left of humans. There are no more human cells. Whole body parts are replaced by cybernetics, and the rest gene-modified, first tweaking some details here and there, but soon changing more and more to the point nothing of the original remained. The human form is no more. There are similar ones, but nothing that would be definitely classified as human. And the similarities tends to by accident rather than intent, a result of startling variety of forms that people have taken. There are no more human minds. Along with improvement to the rest of their bodies, they alter their brains or replace them with equivalents, eliminating evolutionary biases, improving thought, speed, memory, parallel processing, communication with other minds, introducing backups, precision, empathy, sympathy, and so much more. No thought that people these days could have fit into a human mind, and no thought a human mind could have would have been permitted in a modern mind due to the biases and imperfections it is based upon. Their home planet is gone after a turbulent journey. It spent some time growing into a Humanopolis before being turned into a wildlife sanctuary. Then it was briefly a casino, and it was moved to orbit Saturn for the view. Eventually they disassembled it for raw materials. There is no more human language. Language changes over time, and more quickly as the living situations of people change due to new technologies, requiring new terms for new experiences, while older words fall out of favour due to their sudden relevance. Thus, in relatively short order, all the languages of the humans were replaced, piece by piece, and nothing of the originals remains. And similarly, in a broader context, all of human culture followed a comparable fate. It seemed a slow process to the people involved, but on geological timescales, culture was gone in the blink of an eye. New trends and cultural understanding would build upon what came before, like a thin layer on what was already there. And so culture built upon itself, layer upon layer upon layer, until it was fully obscured by what comes after. On and on it kept building until original human culture was buried deep, slowly being compressed by the pressure of the millennia of culture, after it into its purest and most pristine form, a diamond forged by the sheer weight of the inescapable passions of time, and then dug up by a curious historian, formed into a brilliant ring and shown off. Then the novelty and the tension faded. It was there forgotten in a warehouse, and eventually it was used in one of those experiments that show that diamonds can burn, and so it was gone. There are no more human records. Everything they tried to preserve, everything they recorded, wrote down, kept and treasured, it is all gone. It kept being pushed further and further away from actual use, constantly replaced by more current records, as is the way of things. And so they ended up buried deep in archives, meant to last forever even if none would look upon them again. But even there the passage of time was not to be denied, and slowly over time the records were lost, some to war, some deleted to free space for newer ones, some to compression, reducing centuries of data into ever smaller packages until there was but a single sentence remaining. There were copying errors, terrorists targeting data structures, and so much more, each chipping away at the vast amounts of records humans had left to their successors, until it eventually was all gone. All of which would probably have happened on its own eventually, but I helped speed it along significantly. Thus there is nothing left of humans, and my task is complete. The Lord frowned. Nonsense! That is like saying you have destroyed a seed by letting it grow into a tree. Well, in that analogy, the seed would indeed be gone, but rather than a tree, I'd say a sapling is more accurate. They still have much room to grow. We shall see about that. You do, I have to admit, seem competent, even if I disagree with your interpretation of my orders, so this time I shall have to be utterly clear. You are to fully eradicate any trace of, or descendants of, or continuation of, or... Before that, my lord, Technology interrupted. There is technically one thing remaining before my task is complete. You see, there are some that still remember humans. The Lord blinked in shock over being interrupted. After a brief flash of anger across his features, he settled into a grin as he realized something. Oh, so you have indeed failed then. Technology started materializing tiny components in front of her. More than I am not quite done yet, but it will be just a moment. The components locked together, starting to form a machine. It was very reminiscent of the tools that the people humans had turned into used to thwart all their efforts to control them. Many of the other beings flinched away, all too familiar with these terrifying things. Who exactly did you say still remembers humans? The Lord asked, quickly going suspicious. Technology smiled at him. We do, she said, as the components in front of her finished assembling a sleek sphere. But not for long.